He buried his family. Then fate handed him another, on the edge of a sidewalk. Billionaire Samuel Richards was a man undone by tragedy. But when a starving mother dared to beg for scraps through a restaurant window, she didn't just ask for food, she awakened a broken soul. What began as mercy spiraled into scandal, danger, and a love that defied loss itself. Subscribe to Able Folktales for more interesting stories like this. It was a Monday morning and only a few people were eating. Outside, the sky was cloudy and the wind blew gently through the city streets. Inside, at the corner of the restaurant, sat a man in a dark suit. He was alone. He did not eat much. His name was Samuel Richards. People knew him as a billionaire. He owned many companies, hotels, and even a football team. But if you looked closely at him now, he didn't look rich. He looked empty. His eyes were tired. His face was pale. His heart was broken. Just 6 months ago, Samuel had lost everything that mattered to him. His wife, Clara, and their young son, Daniel, were flying to a family wedding in another country. The plane crashed. There were no survivors. Since that day, Samuel had stopped smiling. He stopped talking to people. He stopped working. He stayed at home, surrounded by pictures of his family, crying when no one could see him. But today, for the first time, he had come back to work. His staff was surprised to see him. They tried to talk to him, but he only nodded and walked away. During lunch, he slipped out of his office and walked into the quiet restaurant near his building. He sat by the window looking at the cars pass by. The waiter brought him food, rice, fried chicken, and water, but Samuel barely touched it. He just looked at the plate, thinking about how his son used to love fried chicken. The memory brought tears to his eyes, but he wiped them away quickly. Then something strange happened. As he stared through the glass, he saw a woman standing outside. She was holding a baby in her arms. She was thin and looked tired. Her clothes were old and worn out. Her hair was messy. But her eyes, they were full of strength and quiet pain. She wasn't begging. She didn't speak or hold a sign. She just looked inside the restaurant, her eyes on the food on Samuel's table. When she saw that he wasn't eating, she lifted one hand slowly and pointed at the plate. Then she placed the same hand gently on the baby's back. Samuel blinked. Was she asking for his leftovers? He looked around. No one else saw her. The waiter was busy. Other people were eating and talking. Samuel looked back at the woman. Her face showed no shame, no anger. Just quiet hope. Her baby, wrapped in a thin cloth, looked very small. The baby didn't cry, he was too weak to cry. Samuel stood up. He packed the food in the takeaway box and quickly walked outside. But by the time he got to the door, the woman had stepped away. She was now sitting on a bench near the sidewalk, gently feeding her baby tiny bits of food she had picked from a trash can. Samuel's heart sank. He walked closer and held out the box. She looked up at him, surprised. For a second she didn't move. Then she slowly took the food with a quiet thank you and opened it. Her baby gave a little happy sound and she smiled. A smile filled with sadness and relief. Samuel watched her feed her child carefully. Every bite she gave the baby, she kissed his forehead and whispered softly to him. She didn't eat any of the food herself. Samuel didn't say anything. He just watched. After a few minutes he walked away. But he couldn't stop thinking about her. Back at work, he asked his driver to go back to the spot and wait. "Follow her," he said, "but don't let her see you." The driver didn't ask questions. At the end of the day, the driver returned with news. "She's living in a broken car," the driver said. "It's parked near the old train station. She sleeps in the back seat with her baby." Samuel was silent. That night he couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, remembering the way the woman had held her baby, the way she didn't eat even though she was clearly hungry. He remembered how her eyes looked, how they reminded him of his own. The next day, Samuel called one of his workers from the hotel department. "Send food, baby supplies, and warm blankets to the old train station. Leave them quietly by the blue car parked near the back gate near the old train station. No names. No questions." 4 days he kept sending help. Clothes. Diapers. Baby food. Soap. Each time, the woman found the packages and cried softly, whispering thank you to the empty air. Her name, Samuel found out, was Esther. Her baby's name was James. She had once worked as a cleaner in a small office. But after her ex-boyfriend left her and she lost her job, she had no money, no family, and nowhere to go. The only thing she had left was her baby. Samuel didn't know why, but helping Esther and James gave him a strange kind of peace. He kept watching them from a distance. One day it rained heavily. Samuel drove by the old station and saw the broken car shaking from the wind. Water was leaking into the back seat. Esther was holding James tightly, trying to keep him warm. That night, Samuel made a decision. He walked up to the car and knocked gently. Esther opened the door, frightened at first. But when she saw his kind eyes, she calmed down. "You don't have to stay here anymore," Samuel said softly. "Come with me. There's a warm room waiting for you and James." Esther looked at her baby, then at the rain, then at Samuel. He nodded. Samuel took them to one of the rooms in one of his hotels. The hotel room was warm and clean. Esther stood inside, holding James close to her chest. Her eyes moved slowly across the room. There was a bed with white sheets, a small table with a fruit basket, a clean bathroom, and even a crib for her baby. She had never seen anything like this in her life. "This is for us?" she asked softly. Samuel nodded. "Yes. Everything here is for you and James. You're safe now." Tears rolled down Esther's face. She wanted to say thank you, but no words came. She just held James tightly and cried. For the first time in many months, she felt like someone saw her. Not as a beggar, not as a problem, but as a person. Samuel didn't stay long. He gave her a small phone and told her, "Call this number if you ever need help." Then he walked out quietly. Esther stared at the phone for a long time. She didn't know why this rich, sad man was helping her. She didn't ask for it. But she knew that somehow he understood pain. Maybe not the same kind of pain, but deep pain. And maybe, just maybe, that was why he cared. Days passed. Every morning, food was brought to Esther's room. Clean clothes appeared in bags. James had toys, baby food, and soft clothes to sleep in. A woman from the hotel came to check on them every day and brought books and cartoons for James. Slowly, Esther began to smile again. One day, she even laughed when James tried to wear her shoes. Samuel never came to the room again, but sometimes, Esther would see him from the window. He was always in a black suit, walking quietly. His face still looked sad, but it seemed lighter. Like he had found a reason to keep going. Then one night, everything changed. It was around 2 a.m. James started to cough. First it was small. Esther held him and gave him warm water. But the coughing didn't stop. It got worse. Then came the fever. Then the shaking. James's tiny body was burning hot. Esther panicked. She didn't know what to do. She had no money, no family, and no one to call. She looked at the small phone on the table. Her hands shook as she picked it up. She didn't want to bother Samuel. But James was gasping for breath now. Tears ran down her face as she pressed the number. "Hello." Samuel's voice was sleepy but calm. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," Esther cried. "It's James, he's sick. I don't know what to do." "I'm coming," Samuel said immediately. 20 minutes later, Samuel arrived at the hotel in his pajamas and coat. A doctor and a nurse were with him. They rushed into the room, checked James, and quickly carried him into Samuel's car. Esther held her baby and cried the whole way to the hospital. Samuel sat beside her, holding her hand gently. He didn't say anything, but his presence calmed her. At the hospital, they ran tests and gave James oxygen. "He has a bad chest infection," the doctor said. "It's very serious. If you hadn't brought him now." Samuel looked at Esther and nodded. "He's going to be okay." Esther broke down crying. Right there, in the middle of the hospital hallway, she sat on the floor, holding her baby and sobbing. Samuel knelt beside her and put his arms around her. Something powerful happened in that moment. Two broken hearts found each other. They didn't speak, but they understood. Samuel had lost a son. Esther was trying to save hers. By morning, James was stable. The doctors said he would stay in the hospital for at least 5 days. Samuel paid all the bills without blinking. He also arranged for Esther to stay in a room near the baby. Esther couldn't stop thanking him. But Samuel only said one thing. "You and James matter. Don't ever forget that." The next day, while Esther was feeding James in his hospital bed, a nurse came running in with wide eyes. "Miss Esther, it's everywhere. Your photo is everywhere." "What photo?" The nurse held up her phone. There on the screen was a clear picture of Samuel holding Esther tightly in his arms outside the hospital room. The headline read, "Billionaire Samuel Richards secretly starts new family. Wife just 6 months dead." Esther felt her heart drop. No, no, this isn't what happened, she whispered. Her phone started ringing. It was a reporter. Then another. And another. That night, the story was on every news channel. People whispered, how could he move on so fast? Others said, he has a child with another woman? Some even called her a homewrecker. Esther felt sick. She hid in the hospital bathroom and cried. I didn't ask for this, she said again and again. I didn't ask for this. Samuel came to the hospital that night and she ran to him, crying. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't take the photo. Please forgive me. Samuel looked into her eyes and gently said, I know. I believe you. He had already found out what happened. A reporter had followed him for weeks, hoping to catch him in a scandal. That reporter worked for one of Samuel's business enemies, a man who wanted to destroy Samuel's chances of winning a big government contract. The photo was not an accident. It was a trap. But now the whole country had seen it. The media was loud and cruel. Samuel's board of directors called an emergency meeting. Shareholders were afraid. People called his office, asking questions about his loyalty to his late wife. Your image is at risk, his lawyer said. If you don't say something, you might lose everything. But Samuel didn't care about money. He cared about the truth. He cared about Esther. He cared about James. And he would not let lies destroy them. The next morning, all eyes were on the television. People in offices, schools, homes, and even roadside shops had their TVs and radios turned on. Everyone waited for the live interview with Samuel Richards. The news had been full of noise for days. Photos, angry posts, rude headlines. Some people hated Samuel now. Others were confused. A few still believed in him. But no one knew what Samuel would say. Esther sat on the hospital bed with baby James, her heart beating fast. She held his tiny fingers in hers and whispered, everything will be okay. I believe in him. The red light blinked on the TV. The host cleared his throat. Good morning, Nigeria. Today we speak to the man everyone is talking about. Businessman, hotel owner, and billionaire Samuel Richards. The camera showed Samuel sitting in a chair. He wore a simple blue shirt. No suit. No tie. No smile. Just the truth in his eyes. He began to speak. I want to tell you a story, Samuel said softly. Not about money. Not about business. But about loss and love. The room was silent. My wife Clara and my son Daniel died in a plane crash 6 months ago. Since then I have not known peace. I stopped living. I stopped feeling. I was angry at the world, angry at God, and angry at myself. He paused and looked down. Then one day I saw a woman outside a restaurant. She wasn't begging with her mouth. She was begging with her eyes, for leftover food to feed her baby. People across the country leaned in. I watched her feed her son with so much care. She didn't eat a single bite herself. That moment touched something in me, something that had been sleeping. That woman's name is Esther. Her son's name is James. Samuel's voice cracked. They reminded me of what it means to love again. Not in a romantic way at first, but in a way that woke up my soul. I started helping them, quietly. I gave them a place to stay. I sent clothes and food. I wanted no thanks. I just wanted to feel something. The host tried to interrupt. So are you saying? But Samuel raised a hand. I'm saying that I didn't start a secret family. I didn't disrespect my wife. I was lost, and Esther and her son gave me a reason to breathe again. He looked straight into the camera. This isn't a scandal. This is a second chance. People watching from Lagos to Kano, from Abuja to Enugu stopped what they were doing. Some wiped their eyes. Others nodded slowly. Even those who didn't understand fully could feel the truth in his voice. After the show, everything changed. Messages flooded in, thousands of them. I'm sorry for judging you. Thank you for speaking from the heart. Your wife would be proud. Esther is lucky to have someone like you. The news channels changed their tone. The same media that once called Esther a homewrecker now called her a symbol of hope. The internet shared photos of Samuel feeding baby James, walking with Esther in the hospital, and holding her hand during the interview. But just as things started getting better, trouble knocked again. One evening, Esther was coming back to the hotel when she saw a man standing by the lobby. He had dark eyes and a rough face. His hands were in his pockets and he had a cruel smile. Her heart dropped. It was Mark, her ex-boyfriend and James' biological father. He had come back. "Hello, Esther," Mark said, walking up to her slowly. "I heard you hit the jackpot. Rich man. Fancy hotel. My son." "He's not your son," Esther snapped, holding James tightly. Mark laughed. "He came from me, didn't he? Want him back? Or I go to the media and say you stole him from me. Let's see how your rich boyfriend likes that." Esther shook her head. "You left us. You said you didn't want us." "People change," Mark said with a smirk. "Especially when money's involved." Esther rushed inside and called Samuel. Her hands were shaking. "He's back. Mark is back. He says he wants James." Within minutes, Samuel arrived. He walked straight up to Mark and stood inches from his face. His voice was quiet but full of power. "You abandoned your son. You left them to sleep in a car. You never cared until you saw a chance to take advantage." Mark sneered. "What makes you better? You're not even his father." Samuel took a deep breath, then said something that made everyone around him freeze. "No, I'm not his father by blood. But I'm the one who stayed." Mark scoffed, but Samuel stepped closer. "I fed him when he was hungry. I held him when he was sick. I carried him into the hospital with tears in my eyes. I paid every bill. I stayed when it was hard. That's what a real father does." Mark's face turned red. "You can't stop me." Samuel's voice didn't rise. "Try me. I have 10 lawyers, 15 security guards, and one heart that will fight for James with everything I have." Mark looked at Esther, then back at Samuel. He knew he had lost. Without another word, he turned and walked away into the night. The next day, Samuel filed legal papers. He adopted James. The court asked questions, but everything was clear. Mark had abandoned the child. Samuel had cared for him. The judge looked at James. Esther cried and held her baby boy close. Samuel kissed his forehead and whispered, "I'm yours now, forever." 3 years later, James was now 4 years old. He could run, jump, sing, and laugh loudly. He called Samuel Daddy and never wanted to be far from him. Esther had grown into a confident woman. She managed one of Samuel's hostels now, and the workers respected her deeply. She smiled more, laughed more, and even started wearing bright colors again. Their life was quiet, full of healing. The evening was perfect. The sky was painted with soft orange and pink colors as the sun began to go down. A cool breeze danced through the city. Far above the noise and traffic, on the rooftop of the tallest hotel Samuel owned, lights twinkled like stars. There were roses on every table. Candles glowed gently. Soft music played in the background. Esther stood by the glass railing, looking out at the city she once slept in, inside a broken car. She wore a long red dress that Samuel had sent to her earlier that day. Her hair was braided and her heart beat fast. She didn't know why Samuel had asked her to come up here. All he had said was, "Tonight I want to show you something special." She turned when she heard footsteps. It was Samuel, wearing a deep blue suit, a gentle smile on his face. He looked different, happy, peaceful, whole. He held her hands and whispered, "You look beautiful." Esther smiled shyly. "This place, it looks like a dream." Samuel nodded. "That's what you gave me, a reason to dream again." He led her to a small table with dinner waiting. They ate together, laughed, and talked about James, who was with a nanny downstairs, fast asleep after running around all day. Esther told a story about how James had tried to feed the dog with cornflakes. Samuel told her how James had secretly called him Captain Daddy in school. They laughed like best friends. But inside, Samuel's heart was racing. He had been planning this night for weeks. He stood up and held her hand. "Come," he said gently. "I want to show you something." He led her to the center of the rooftop, where rose petals formed a big circle. In the middle was a small box sitting on a white pillow. Esther's eyes widened. "Samuel, what is this?" He slowly got down on one knee. Tears filled Esther's eyes before he even said a word. Samuel looked up at her, his voice soft but strong. "Esther, you came into my life when I was drowning. You didn't try to save me with big words. You saved me by being you, quiet, brave, gentle, and kind." He opened the box. Inside was a beautiful ring that sparkled like the stars above them. "You gave me a reason to live again. You gave me a son, a family, a home, and most of all, you gave me love." Esther covered her mouth with her hands, tears running down her cheeks. "Esther, will you marry me?" She didn't answer with words at first. She fell to her knees and hugged him tightly, crying into his shoulder. Then she whispered in his ear, "Yes. Yes. A million times yes." The music grew louder. Fireworks lit up the sky in red, gold, and white. The whole rooftop glowed with joy. People on the streets looked up, pointing and cheering. Downstairs, James woke up and ran to the window. "Mommy? Daddy?" he said, smiling when he saw the sky full of lights. The workers at the hotel who once knew Esther as just the quiet girl in a broken car now clapped and cheered. Some even cried. They knew her story. They had watched it unfold day by day from pain to peace. 1 month later, Samuel and Esther got married in a small, private wedding. Only close friends, workers, and a few people from Esther's old neighborhood came. There were no gold chains, no shiny cars, just love and laughter. James wore a tiny white suit and carried the rings. Everyone said he looked just like Samuel, even though they weren't related by blood. But by heart, they were father and son forever. Their life didn't become perfect overnight. Sometimes, Esther would still cry when she passed the old train station. Sometimes, Samuel would look at the photo of Claire and Daniel and feel a sharp pain. But now they had each other to hold on to. When one was weak, the other was strong. When one was sad, the other brought laughter. When James got sick, they stayed up together all night, reading to him and praying. They became a team. They became a family. Years passed. Samuel grew older, but he never stopped calling Esther his miracle. Esther became a strong woman known for kindness and wisdom. She opened a home for women who had nowhere to go, just like she once did. And James grew up into a kind, smart boy. He loved books, drawing, and helping people. Every time someone asked him, "Who is your real dad?" he would smile and say, "The man who stayed." Subscribe to Able Folktales for